Matt, what's up, brother?
Look at us.
Good to see you.
Come a long way in a year and a half.
Yeah, it came a long way today. I had to pick you up from a store to drive you here.
You're my designated driver, man.
That's right. I'm your chauffeur.
That's right. I was just telling the lady in the coffee room.
Just speak next to the mic, will you?
I was telling the lady in the coffee room. I go, we were talking. She, how'd you get here? I was like, oh, I got my designated driver picked me up. I was like, my boss. And he goes, I sold both my cars to come here. That was the hardest thing. Wasn't moving. Wasn't picking my life up. Wasn't ending selling real estate. Wasn't leaving Berkshire Hathaway. Moving my wife. No, it was selling my 2016 Audi. That was
Selling
the worst
2016
thing.
Audi.
That was my least favorite thing.
What kind of Audi?
An SQ5. It's like a sport
Nice.
SUV, so it's rare and it's hard to find the exact one that I
Oh,
wanted.
it's the SUV. I almost bought the
Yeah,
S5 convertible.
it's a good one.
And I went with the Benz instead.
I got into cars because of real estate. Because I saw all these clients were driving up in nice cars, and I was driving a Honda or Toyota at the time, and I was like, I need to get into these things. It'll be a good conversation starter. And so it actually worked.
It does.
I started driving up, and it wasn't anything crazy. Audis, Infinities, that kind of luxury stuff. And then
Sure.
the people had started immediate conversation with somebody you just met. So that's kind of how it works.
So tell me about yourself. Where'd you grow up?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland,
Yeah,
Ohio.
My whole life. Yeah, whole life.
What was that like? I'll probably never have somebody else on this show that grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. Except I think it's Jimmy Lawrence.
Yeah.
He grew up in Cincinnati, I
You might
think.
have LeBron on sometime.
Yeah,
or Jeffrey Dahmer's gone, so not him.
That's
but,
right.
Yeah. It's a good place. It's like the most mid. What'd you call it? It's like I always call it middle culture, right? So you got high culture, which is going to be New York, LA, Miami, those very high end cultures that create a lot of ambition, and all the famous people and most successful people usually come out of those places. And then you got kind of the podunk towns and the kind of the lower culture, which is it's makes up a lot of the United States, but it's Topeka, Kansas, and those types of places. And then you got places like Cleveland in the Midwest, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Detroit, Nashville, even. And so you get this kind of middle of the road culture that it's got industry, it's got people who are ambitious, it's got money. It's got its hard parts of towns as well, but all in all, people are relatively nice. You can get ahead if you put your mind to it. I was just one of those people that really put my mind to it, so I was able to get ahead pretty fast. But yeah, it's a good place. There's stuff to do. It's not totally boring, like a lot of places might be, in those areas. But I loved it, to be honest.
That'd be
for
cool.
a time. Yeah, you should come sometime.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun when we went down there
it
this
was
summer.
good.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Where were we? In Cleveland. We went to the show, the card show.
Oh, yeah,
whatever
went to
it
the
is.
card show with Brandon Steiner and met. I got to meet all the
Yeah,
bigger
athletes.
athletes out there, and it's a good place. I think it's great for somebody who wants simplicity but not to be bored.
Okay.
I think those are great places.
It's pretty cool.
Cleveland's one of those. So
Where'd you go to high
that's
school?
from-
Cleveland?
yeah, went to Cleveland. Went to a smaller private school for high school, and then I went to college at Akron, which is it's not a state university, but it's a pretty run-of-the-mill city university. High acceptance rate. I was a good student. I just academics and education wasn't where my passion was. So,
Well put. Okay.
yeah,
Did you get your degree? Or?
I did. Yeah, I
I
got.
should notice I hired you.
Yeah. Yeah. Organizational supervision. Really, just it was an HR degree, and it was for working adults. It was night school, morning school, early morning school, like getting to class at 7 a.m. and then online. Yeah, I was all working adults because I worked full time during school.
Yeah, you had an interest in life. You started real estate at what age?
18.
18.
Yeah, managing properties, 55 units, residential, commercial, some strip malls, apartment building, a lot of single family, few duplexes. Yeah, I did that from 18 to 21, and in that time, I got my license and started selling, and then said I learned enough from this, get out of there
Okay.
and just sell.
And what was that like? What's the transition like going from management to salaried position to? And Dad owned the real estate company too.
He had the brokerage. He didn't own all the real estate that I managed. There was 5.
Oh, I
different
thought he owned
guys.
the real estate,
Yeah.
too.
He had shares in some of them, but there was 5 different investors. Yeah, 5
Okay.
different investors who owned them, and he was part of that. He's the one who got me into it and everything. And I was the property manager. I collected rents, knocked on doors, evicted people when it needed done.
What's the
I
evictions
rent-
like in Cleveland?
Fast, easy,
Yeah?
and easy. Yeah, you can be from from posting a 3-day notice to having the bailiff there hauling stuff to the street, you're 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not hard.
Sort of like New York.
Opposite. Exact opposite of New York. It's
8 weeks.
8 months for you guys to just like get into court and have them show up.
If we're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah. No, it's easy. Way easier. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And then, all right, so you, like, what's the fun thing in Cleveland to do? Like tip cows? Is it
Tip
stuff like
cows,
that?
race down the highway. No, fun things to do. Honestly, the downtown's great. It's all the sports teams are located downtown, so it brings a lot of energy on the weekends because you got the Cavaliers, the Guardians, the baseball team, then you got the Browns for the NFL, and it just drives a ton of energy. It's a huge sports town. They're diehard. It's a football town mostly. Right.
More football than basketball?
More football than anything. Yeah. And then basketball is there too.
So how was it like? When was it like when, I meant to ask you this and I never did, when LeBron first left? Were you part of that group that was running his jerseys and all that?
Well, we grew up about 5-10 minutes down the road from where he built this behemoth mansion in the suburbs.
I saw that.
Yeah, we took you by it. It's a wild place. It's when he left, I was sitting in a bar with my dad and my sister. We're like we're the main basketball fans in my family, and we're the decision was happening, and then it happened in the bar. We're in a Winking Lizard Tavern, and the place just went bananas. People started crying.
What did you think?
I remember the bartender cried.
Did you really think he was going to stay? I'm not trying to be a wise ass. I'm just honest. Like, what was going through your mind?
Well, at that time, yeah, because
well, he's from Cleveland.
He's from Cleveland. He's a hometown guy.
But could they afford?
We didn't understand what Cleveland never had a celebrity like that before. I guess the closest person to LeBron that Cleveland ever had would be like Jim Brown. Yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer. No, like Jim Brown maybe. Like that. That was so long ago. So we never had a superstar and understood, especially like that, which is there's no one really like him. We were ignorant. We thought, we do stay in Cleveland because you make great money. You can't, and you're gonna win a championship eventually. And people just thought he loved, and he's from Akron, which is 20 minutes south of Cleveland, which is where I grew up. So we thought.
Did you ever see him play as a high school kid or no?
Yeah. He played my high school when he was, I think, a freshman. I think they played once. And
was he that good?
Yeah. He was dunking on. Like I had friends who got dunked on in like 8th grade by him. Yeah, they were older than me because he's about 10 years older than me, but. I had friends who were more friends with my sister, and they played against him, and then we go to St. V. We went to a St. V game I think once. My sister was a huge basketball player back then, and so we go to those games, and it was solid crowds in a high school stadium, thousands and thousands of people. Yeah,
to go watch him.
It was a thing. ESPN would be there once in a while, and they interview him after the games, and. It was, it goes back to your original question, what it's like. It's a place where something like that really matters. It's a huge impact on that part of the country and that city. I mean, he was the economy in a lot of ways for the city. So when somebody like that leaves,
it's a lot of pressure for a young kid like
way
that.
Way too much pressure. And
he originally got drafted by Cleveland.
Yeah, we lucked out with the first round draft pick, and
that's amazing.
Yeah, and then he got drafted by his hometown team. Yeah,
that's pretty amazing when you think about that.
Yeah. Well, when he came back, that was a really big deal, and then when he won the championship, that was probably that's a core memory. That's like a top.
That's right. So
memory.
He left.
Yeah.
Didn't win anything with you. You guys burnt all his shit, right?
Yeah.
He went to Miami.
Yeah. And came back.
He won 1 with Miami or 2?
He won 3.
3 with Miami.
He won 3.
I thought he lost. How many did he lose with
He
them?
lose a few, but he had his, what was it? I think it's his 3rd or 4th ring. I think was with Cleveland, and then he won 1 with the Lakers after that.
Oh, that's right. In the bubble.
Yeah, so I think it's a total of 4. So maybe he won 2 in Miami, and then 2 or 3, and then came up to Cleveland and won. And it was the craziest thing that's ever happened to the city. Grown men crying.
That's pretty
grown
pretty
men
cool.
cry who I've never seen. Yeah, just because their whole lives have been wanting a championship of some sort. Anything. We'd take a roller skate championship if we could take one. We had nothing, and always so close. And then finally, it came along, and he won it, and it was. And everything was forgiven. And we didn't care what he did after that. He could have left the day after and nobody would have cared.
Really?
No, because he came and did his thing.
You got what you wanted.
He came and did what he promised to do, and then mission accomplished. So when he went to the Lakers.
I wonder what made him come back to Cleveland? Just to accomplish that championship?
Yeah, I think accomplished it. And I think, also Miami was being poorly managed at the time. I don't think he was getting along with people down there. And it's not a sports city. Miami is not a hometown sports city at all. I went to a game there a couple years ago, a playoff game, and it wasn't filled until... halfway through the second quarter, people started finally coming in. That would never happen. It would have been filled in Cleveland with an hour before game time. Everybody would have been in the stadium.
Oh, wow.
So it's just not a big sports. It's not a big sports city. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
get into you now. So you're in the real estate business. You're working as an agent, I guess, in Cleveland,
Yeah.
selling properties. What made you decide to get out of that and start looking for leadership and come into New York or Nashville or Miami, wherever you're looking to go at that point? What
Well,
made you want to leave something that cool in
yeah,
Cleveland?
it was good. Yeah, it was a good run, and I was in a comfy spot, and that's why I left, because I was comfortable. I could have stayed there and made good money and accomplished, and I could have been king of Cleveland or whatever, and I would have been king of Cleveland,
Mhm.
and I saw the ceiling. I was at Berkshire Hathaway for 5 years at that point, and I started seeing the ceiling. I saw what does the end game look like here, and it wasn't a bad end game. It was just, I was young. I was already at that point, say I was 27, I was 9 years into my career, so, which is way ahead of a lot of people at 27, ahead of all my friends. So I started looking at that and going, where do I want to be? And when I'm 30, 35, 40, and am I going to hit a ceiling here by the time I'm 40 years old in Cleveland, and kind of start pushing numbers around instead of doing exciting things like I want to be doing. And so I started looking. I looked at everywhere besides New York, even though New York is where I always wanted to be. I looked everywhere else. I looked Nashville, Miami, Charlotte, Florida. Talked to the people over at Berkshire Hathaway in Montana, even to run all of Montana. Talked to people in Denver, California, Frisco, Texas. I mean, I could literally name a spot I was open to at least talking to the people. And lo and behold, I get a hold of, or an executive recruiting company gets a hold of me and asks where I want to be. They looked at my resume, said, "Oh, it's a good resume. We could probably get you in the doors in a few places. Where do you want to be?" And I started naming all those cities, and then I threw in there at the last second. I said, "Oh, by the way, my sister lives on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. If you can get me close to the city, I'd be open to it." I didn't even say the city. I said, "Get me close to the city." I said, "Okay." And 2 days later, they called me and said, "Hey, I got some openings in New Jersey." And I talked to this guy named Michael Brand, who's an owner of a Keller Williams in New Jersey. And I said, "Oh, great, I'll talk to them." And so I talked to Michael Brand about some of the brokerages he has out there in New Jersey, and it went pretty well. And I thought, it was moving fast. He wanted to fly me out there, and so he texted me some flights and everything. And I talked to my wife, and we're sitting outside of a Mexican restaurant in Cleveland, and she goes, "I don't want to live in New Jersey." I go, "Why? It's New Jersey. It's an hour and a half outside. It's not even an hour and a half outside the city where we were talking about." She goes, "I don't want to live in New Jersey." She goes, "Matt, if we're going to be by the city, we need to be in it." We got in a fight for 10 minutes in the car, totally ruined a double date we had walking into this Mexican restaurant. We were ticked off of each other. And I was like, I can't believe 3 years I'm looking for an executive job somewhere outside. Somebody's got to take a chance on this, at that time, 29-year-old. And I finally get this guy to want to take a chance on me, and it's an hour and a half outside of this dream that we wanted.
Really, an hour?
Yeah, it was like an hour. It was an hour. I was saying 45 minutes to get her to say yes to it, and she would. Yeah, she's like, she was looking on the train.
There's a point.
She did. She was like, "No, it's an hour and a half." I said, "Okay." So she goes, "I'm not living in New Jersey. It doesn't matter. I'm not living in New Jersey, and I don't want to move there." I said, "Okay, well,
Tell
we're
her
a
where's the
team."
pants in that family.
Oh my gosh! Well, when coming to a decision like that, you need both people to be sold, and she was not sold. Yeah. No, she does wear the pants. Make no mistake. Yeah, she makes the decisions. So, listen, I make the decisions at work. She makes the decisions at home, right? So but she said, "No, this is not going to happen." And so I remember we got in a fight. It was that night. So the next morning, I called Michael. I was like, "Please don't pick up. Please don't pick up. Please don't pick up." Oh, he didn't pick up. Thank God. I leave a voicemail. I remember it to this day. I go, "Michael, it's Matt Stouffer. Hey, I appreciate you a lot. I don't want to waste your time. I know you got somebody else, that you're looking to hire. I don't want you to hold off anything for me. I'll be very honest with you. I don't want to live in New Jersey. I want to live in Manhattan. I want to run that place, and I want to make triple the money. Have a good day." Hung up the phone. Whew, I ruined that relationship. Let's move on to something else. Hour later, I get a call. I'm in my car passing Summit Mall in Ohio, and I was like, "Oh, no." I was like, "Oh, no." So I click answer. "Matt, Michael, how are you? Hey, got your voicemail. Love it, man. Totally fine. Thank you so much for being honest with me. Hey, I tell you what, here, let me give you to the guy who owns Manhattan. It's his name's Rich Amato." I said, "Great, awesome." 2 weeks later, and I thought nothing would happen with it. I thought he was being nice. 2 weeks later, I'm eating cereal at my breakfast table, and I get a text with you and Michael Brand in it, and says, Matt Stouffer, meet Rich Amato, owner of Keller Williams in Manhattan, and then you called me, and the rest is history, right? And that's how it happened. So it was the dream turned into the reality, and I was never looking for it, which is what I think is the interesting part of it. Yeah.
Very interesting, yeah, because you interviewed in Nashville before that, right, with Keller?
Got very far into it, yeah, in Nashville, and then I got pretty far with some other companies called Old Bankers and other places and some other franchise brands like that, yeah. But,
so let's get rid of all the, let's not even talk about the boring parts, about the hiring and all of that stuff, because that was grueling, right? That was
8 months.
8 months to hire.
Yeah, 8 months total. Seven, yeah.
Right, it was interesting, and to say the least, right? You came in, we met.
Yeah.
I just sit with me for a day just to see, or a little bit of time just to see what I went through. And
day and a half. It was 16 hours spent over 48 hours total. Yeah.
Just to watch what we do and get some kind of crazy idea. And well, you wanted to do it too, so we did that, which was interesting, right? I guess you liked it, so you stayed. You ended up taking a chance with us also. But something in me believed in you, and it was weird. Because again, it's I wasn't from the city either. I was a Long Island guy and a Queens guy, and lived in Westchester. You know, I was a cop in the city, but I never ran a real estate company until then. And you know, to take a chance on somebody from Cleveland that didn't know the city, but you showed me something that you had, and what gave you that drive, like to go out and do the things that you did? Because everything you told me you were going to do, you did, which is cool. And I appreciate that because you're doing a great job at it, obviously.
What gave that drive? I think it's almost like it was meant to be. Meaning like everything in my career and in my life too, but talking mostly about my work life, things just worked out. Like, and I didn't really make them happen. I did my part in the situation, but things happened around me. I took advantage of the situations that were around me. And I always had like an unfounded, I call it an undeserved confidence, right? My first deal ever was, actually, you asked the question, where's that in me? It comes all the way back to my first deal, goes all the way back to then, and like how I've interacted with people my whole career. My first listing, I went in, I competed against, actually, it was a Keller Williams agent. It was Patty Kurtz. And I was competing against the listing on Broad Boulevard in Cuyahoga Falls, and I won it. You know, I was just turned 19. You know, it was my first listing, and sold it that weekend. And I remember thinking, you know, I didn't have anything but confidence. There was nothing else. I didn't have any other listings I sold. I didn't have any other, nothing besides me, what I know, probably a crappily put together competitive market analysis, and then just my confidence of I can do this. And that guy took a chance on me, and it worked out. It kind of powered me for the next one and the next one and the next one, because I thought, oh my gosh, I can do that. I could really I could do some real damage in this industry. And then the unfounded and undeserved confidence turned into actual confidence that was backed up, right? But that's, so you asked where that comes from. 19 years old, walking into houses, competing against tough real estate agents in that market, top real estate agents, and succeeding somehow or some way. And that just kind of set my trajectory of how I interact with myself and opportunities. You know, I go, I can do this. I can figure it out. Right. Yeah.
So you get into the position in New York City.
Yeah.
When'd you start?
Jan 1 of 24. So it's been a year and a half.
Year and a half now. Well, a year and 3 or 4 months.
Sure. Yeah.
Right, to be exact. What did you think you were getting into?
What I thought I was getting into? I thought I was getting into a position where, you know, I'm managing an office, and people are going to rely on me for some things, not everything. And you know, I'd be talking to top real estate agents and maybe helping them out here and there. Recruiting obviously is part of it, but I didn't understand the gravity of those things. Meaning, it was all those things, but times 10, right? I wasn't just managing real estate agents. No, they're calling me to help them negotiate $25 million townhouses. What? You know, they're going to trust me with that. I can do it. I just did one last weekend, but I didn't know that was what it was going to be. I guess I didn't realize the power of the position until you get into it. you know, that's what I thought.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
So you end up in the position, your first day there, you take my corner office from me. So I went from,
I kicked you right out of that
kicked me
thing.
right out
I
of it.
remember you. I remember I was like, "This is a test. He thinks I'm not going to kick him out of this thing. He is gone." They gave it. I said, "Moving in, buddy.
That was funny.
You want me to run the place? You gotta act the part." You know?
But so you end up in that position,
Yeah.
and you're going into with all of these, I guess, egos and top agents in the marketplace. Like, how'd you fit in? Like, how? It's a silly question, right? Again, kid from Cleveland, young guy. How did you go in there and fit in with these people? Because it was hard for me going in, and I'm a New York guy.
I don't. That's the secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
not?
That's the secret. Yeah. If you fit in, it's New York. What I realized pretty fast is New York is a place where everybody wants to be something. Everybody has an ego. I have an ego. Everybody does. They'll do whatever to get ahead, and they'll stretch the truth. They'll straight up just lie sometimes. They'll do whatever they can to figure out how to get ahead. And I just decided I wasn't going to try to play the game. I said, I'm just going to be myself and do what I know is right, and I'm going to tell the truth about who I am. And if I fit in, great. If I don't fit in, that's not a big deal. I fit in some ways. I think my personality fits in a few
I think you do.
ways. Yeah. But I don't think I completely fit in. I think it's what makes it work is because I think people gravitate towards me because of that. They go, this person is different. Yeah, he kind of speaks a little different language. He has weird little quirks that are Midwestern. He's never sold a co-op in his life. That's interesting, right? Some people take that as a negative, some as a positive, whatever. It's just what it is, right? There are things I couldn't control. I can't control my age. I can't control I'm not from New York, right? I can't control those things. So I just don't pay attention to my work around them, right? There are things you just won't be able to get around in your life. You can't change them. All right, just move forward, right? I don't really acknowledge it as much as as much as other people might notice it. But I think not fitting in perfectly actually works to my advantage.
I think so too.
I really do.
Very well answered.
Yeah.
I think
So
that's a good answer. I think, it's kind of funny. Like, what gives you the desire to go out there and call like somebody that just sold $100 million worth of real estate in New York City?
this might be an offensive answer.
I don't think it will be.
I don't care. I'm not intimidated by them.
And you shouldn't be.
Okay, so let's take somebody. If we go back to Cleveland, and I'm calling. Let's say I'm trying to recruit a top agent from. There's a company called Howard Hanna, right? It's a huge company. There's always a big competitor, right? So, okay, let's say I go and I call their top agent. Okay, there's an intimidation factor in the sense that I know they mean something to me, right? I've worked with them on deals. Or I haven't worked with them on deals, but I see their signs everywhere. They're the top agent, whatever. That's there. Now that I'm here in New York, these people are all new. These are all new relationships, right? Back in Ohio, I probably knew those people. I knew Adam Kaufman. I knew Michael Kame. I knew these people. Here, I don't know them. So when I'm calling somebody, I just want to get to know them.
You really want to get to know them.
I really just found out who they were that week or that day or 5 minutes ago, and I was like, I'm interested. What's going on? And if you come at a conversation like that, I'm just curiosity. Most people are pretty responsive to it. So, yeah, again, it's an advantage.
And it really is. It's, I think you're right. And the funny thing is, I've been in more.
Well, that was Jonathan, by the way.
Explain that one.
Well,
let's get into that story real quick.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, I don't know if his podcast's been released yet or not, but Jonathan's probably the most recognizable real estate agent probably in the world. Right? When your grandma and your mom and your wife and all your wife's friends and all your friends know who this guy is, and they're not from New York and they don't pay attention to real estate, that's pretty recognizable for a guy who sells real estate. But to me, I called the guy up because I got a little bird told me. I told him a little birdie told me that he was looking to go somewhere and do something else, and so for me, I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not intimidated by this because I never watched the show. Right now I have because I've talked to him.
I tried to watch it this week and I can't watch it.
Yeah, it's hard. I had my watch do the recon mission for me. I said, you watch it and tell me what's going on. I'll try to get an episode or two in. And I did. And those are the main episodes that you really needed to watch to get that story. But
I couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
The first 5 minutes, it's just so tough.
I know. It's a tough show.
I'm sitting on the floor.
Yeah,
I don't mean to.
Yeah, I know. I know. It was rough. Yeah. Real estate shows in general are rough to watch when you're in it. It'd be like being a doctor and watching House or Grey's Anatomy or just something, or
A
even,
cop show like me
or
watching a police officer.
yeah, it's just you're so involved in it that you pick everything
Careless.
apart, and it's just not. It's never going to be enjoyable.
Mm.
But hey, that was Jonathan. I cold called that guy essentially, right? And I was able to do that because I don't know. I don't know. He sells real estate. I looked at it. I was like, oh, he sells good real estate. Great. Okay, let's call him up and talk about real estate. So it's an advantage. That's does that make sense?
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take me through that, though. Take me through that call, though, because that was an interesting call. You
Sure.
get him on, and then you come to me and you're asking me to take a ride downtown to
Well,
meet
that just
with this
happened
guy.
to be be the luck of the draw, right? No, I call him up. I just I had an agent that I recruited from another company that he had been with, and that agent said, "Oh yeah, he's looking to do something. I heard he's unhappy." So I just called him and I said, "Hey, little birdie told me it'd be a good time for me and you to get together." He says, "Your little birdie was right. It'd be a great time to get together. Let's schedule an appointment for the next week or whatever." And I'm in the office, and you're in the office, and I don't know, you're walking around drinking Sprite, and I see you, and I think I saw you in the elevator, and I said, "Hey, you want to go meet an agent with me?" It's like one of the guys from the TV shows, and you go, "Yeah, I got some time." I said, "Great." So we literally went from there, went down, met him downtown, and at a
We end up
restaurant.
in Texas.
Yeah, and then we end up in Texas a couple weeks later, meeting with Gary Keller, and that's a testament to just having relationships and just calling people and being curious, right? That's how that's exactly how it happened. There's no magic words. There's nothing, I'm decent on the phone, but that wasn't the reason it worked. It was, he really did have something he was wanting to do and looking to go somewhere. I heard about it. I called it out and said, "Then you should talk to me." He said, "Okay."
Was that one of the best cab drivers you ever had?
Oh my God. We're in Texas going down to meet Gary Keller, and we're all in a car together. It's Jonathan, his partner, me and you, and oh my God, that driver was insane. It was awesome. It was so wild.
I could rally them up, man.
You really riled him up. You really knew how to poke the bear and get him really going. He has a lot of politically incorrect things said in that cab ride by that guy, but
That was so good. If that was on
fun.
televised, oh my God, that would have been
That was one
awesome.
of the best cab rides I've ever been. That was Jonathan is looking back like, this is Texas? Like, what is going on here?
Tatted dude up.
Yeah.
For his neck, and tattoos. But so again, but you came to Keller and you did really well, right? Some I don't want to say really well. We still have a lot to do.
Yeah.
But
Made some damage for it. It takes 6 months just to get what color the walls are, So we've been going at it for a little less than a year.
did you ever
I
think honestly? And I'm not trying to
Yeah.
swallow your head up here a little bit, but because I'm not one of those guys that pats people on the ass and say good job. Obviously,
Really, you aren't? I had no idea.
you never knew that, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting. It is pretty cool. Not even a year in a family reunion, you're on a panel in family reunion. How'd that happen?
I think part of it's purely being in Manhattan. Meaning, if you're gonna have any success at all and you're able to do it in Manhattan, that's a big deal. People will notice, right? I had some decent success, but and I'm having it currently. But it's just being in Manhattan, you get a spotlight just because if you're doing anything there, it matters, right? It's where most major real estate brokerages have their flagship. So I think there's part of that. I think the part that set me apart in it, I really just started. I was starting to do things a little different than I think the previous team leaders and CEOs did, which was I really tried to tell the story of what Keller Williams is and is specifically in Manhattan and telling it to top people, right? And really focusing on that. I think that's where I made my focus, and I got a few big fish, and I think that it showed the company. Okay, there's something different that can happen here. Right, we can go a different place. We can get back into those top ranks again, and I think they noticed it. That's really it. And I think there's something I was able to do that it's very difficult. There's things I'm not so great at. One thing I'm very good at is telling a story and talking to a top agent about business and being just business oriented with them, and it hit. And that's why they put me on there. I think that's why.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So now that you're in New York for a year, and I know it's not a lot of time, but is it similar to Cleveland? Is it not? What is it?
Well, you're talking about real estate?
Everything. Let's stay with real estate.
Yeah, real estate, it's yes and no. It's not similar in this way. I think the job's harder. I think being a real estate agent is just flat out harder in New York and the surrounding areas. I say surrounding areas because the people who own in the city also own in those surrounding areas. So I think the clientele is way harder to deal with. I always tell this story. One of the this is way back, kind of in the not way back, but at the beginning of when I was there. But we had I don't want to say who, but there was a major city in the United States, not quite New York, but in that realm. And that team leader sent over their best agent, and in this city, Keller Williams was number one. They had all the best clients, right? So this CEO from one of the best brokerages in one of the best cities in the United States calls me and says, "Hey, I got a referral for you, and it's from my best agent, and it's their best client, and they want to buy something in Manhattan. Their daughter's moving to NYU. Put me with an agent." So I put him with an agent, and so you got the number one brokerage in a major city, and you got the number one agent at that brokerage and their number one client, and they could barely afford $3 million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And so that's the toughest client that somebody's going to work with back in that other major city, and it's a everyday Tuesday in New York, right? I use that as the anecdote to say
That's
the clientele is just on average more financially sophisticated and business sophisticated than the average client in other places. Not saying, I mean, and we helped out very big clients in Cleveland. We've helped out very well-known people, and that's just kind of an everyday thing. That was a once-a-year thing back in Cleveland, and we handled a lot of those big people. Here, it's an everyday thing, and so it's just harder. That's what's different. Yeah, obviously the closings are different. It's an attorney state, all that kind of run-of-the-mill stuff that makes transactions harder. But you just got to be sharper.
But the clientele in Cleveland, wouldn't they think they're still like like you say, $1 million client in Cleveland? Would they
course.
think they were like a $10 million client here? Or is it?
No, yeah, everybody everybody in their own world. If you're a big fish in a small pond, you're a big fish, right? So you're gonna interact like a big fish. You're gonna think like a big fish. But that's everybody who, for the most part, not everybody, but on average, the client who's buying or selling in the city is a big fish somewhere. Maybe it's not in the city, but they're a big fish back in Cleveland. They're a big fish back in that city that they came from. And that's the personality they have, right? You can go to most places in the country, not everybody thinks they're a big fish. You have people who are the run of the mill, they have their jobs and, they're paid salary or hourly or whatever, and then they can buy real estate. That's just not the case in Manhattan. You get those people, and then you get the people with trust funds and parents who've done really well and those types of things. But the clientele's just harder. These people have it harder, and those people own real estate upstate. They own it Long Island, the Hamptons, even New Jersey. And so I just think this whole area deals with harder clientele than the average real estate agent does in the rest of the country.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Your family, again, you own Berkshire. Your family. Well, they didn't own Berkshire.
We sold it. Yeah, they took our name. So our
took
name,
your
it looked
name.
like we owned it. We really actually didn't have any.
Correct. So
I was the only person in management left. Yeah.
So you guys own the mom and pop.
Yep. 200 agents.
200 agent mom and pop.
Yeah.
Looking at that from the outside in now, and then being Keller, what's the difference in brokerages?
Well, I've had 3 experiences now. Keller's my third one, right? So the first one's the mom and pop. And we sold to Berkshire for about 5 years. And then now at Keller.
And I'm sure they're all great companies.
They are actually. They all have their ups and downs. I think the difference is, the biggest difference is opportunity, right?
Okay.
For instance, I think the reason I ended up at Keller was because of that. It was opportunity. You guys create opportunity for people. You created opportunity for me. You did, right? Michael Brand did, right? It's like these people, they see talent they wanted in their world. They'll figure out how to make it work.
So does that work in the other companies? Because I really don't know them. Obviously I know people in their companies and I know the leaders there. Yeah. But would you get a position where, like what Mike did with us, where he knew you weren't going to fit in his world, so they recommend somebody else, or just
I'm a little more Yeah, I think that they operate that might. I'm not speaking for every Berkshire Hathaway or anything. I'm just saying, when it's not, how would I put it? It's not their fault that they're kind of about it. They just might not have opportunities. They're not growing. They're not opening 10 new offices. They're closing offices. So, do you know what I mean? So it's, in our world, it's like, okay, we're always looking to do this, expand instead of condensing, and most places were condensing. And so they might have great talent out there, but they don't have anywhere to put it because they're letting people go, not hiring.
Mm.
Right. I think that's probably where the difference is. So if they're in a big growth state, I'm sure something like that might have happened. But in the last, 6, 7 years, it hasn't been in that stage for most companies, especially the last few years. People have been shrinking down, and instead we're hiring, right? And you're looking for talent every day. I think that's the difference. So
That's pretty okay.
yeah.
So what's the one thing you get up every morning missing about Cleveland?
Selling real estate. It's nothing to do with Cleveland necessarily. Because I miss selling real estate. I like it. We're talking about helping the agents out and, doing some deal doctrine for them. I get the rise out of there, when I'm helping people out with how to negotiate with their clients. No, I miss, there's quick wins in selling. That's why salespeople, they get the quick wins, right? And I miss that aspect of it. I have to create and find that in my own world now, and I do it with recruiting.
Yeah, I was gonna say that must be.
Yeah, that's how. Yeah, that's where I get the rides.
And I guess when
it's
other people make nice deals, you're getting a little bit of a.
yeah, and when the agents do well, I mean this sincerely. So if the agents are listening to this, I'm telling you, it's true. When they call me, they can call me about whatever at any time, but when they call me and it's about, yeah, I need help with this deal. This is the type of seller I'm dealing with. This is the situation we're in. They're not coming down. They're not coming up. Whatever it is, they want to get out of the deal, and they call me about something like that. I genuinely love it. Harjot Nayar called me one time, and it was about somebody was trying to squeeze on commission, and we talked for I missed my train. I talked to her for an hour and a half because I lit up about it. I love it, right? And obviously she needed help, and we made it, and it worked, right? And when we figured it out. But those are the conversations I love. I love real estate. I just love it. I love that I get to manage these people who are doing those $25 million deals, or the $1 million deal, or the $5,000 rental. It doesn't matter. I love that we get to any real estate in Manhattan's cool to me. It's cool. It's Manhattan. It's cooler than anything I would have sold in Cleveland. Doesn't matter what it is. It's awesome. It's the epicenter of the world. How could it not be cool? Doesn't matter if it's in downtown or Harlem, East Side, West Side. It's in the city. It's awesome to me. And the fact that we get to do thousands of transactions there, and I get to be a small part of them by just helping these agents out that's the coolest part of the job. That's what I like about it. The best part of the job to me is that. That's how I put
That's
it.
so interesting.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Who else in your family's in real estate? Is it
Just my dad.
just you and Dad?
Yeah, my sister way back when was an admin for a top agent, and then my brother did some IT work, and still does IT work. He doesn't just do some IT work. He basically handles, I think, 38 offices between Ohio and Pennsylvania, something like that. But he's not in the brokerage side. The only licensed people are me and my father. Yeah.
So Stouffer Realty,
Yeah.
what was that? That was Cleveland.
Cleveland, Akron. There's about 3 to 4 counties that we really did well in. And it was an independent company. My dad started it in 1997, sold it in 2020, And
What did Dad do before real estate?
tire builder. Yeah, he built tires for Goodyear. Yeah, so Akron, Ohio, where I grew up, was the rubber industry, rubber epicenter of the world. That's how you put it. And he was a tire builder, did well as when tire builders made good money. He bought some real estate, did some flips, rented some stuff out, said, hey, maybe I could just broker my own deals, gets his license. Then, of course, goes on and starts selling because of that, and, gets into real estate when the interest rates were 16%. Finds success, and, by the 1990s was a top guy in his area. In 1997, he opens up the company, and Dorothy Martin comes along with him, who is like the number one girl and the number one agent in that area. And she trusted my dad, came along, and the rest was history. Built one of the only surviving independent companies through the recession. Everybody else closed down. And my parents thought about closing that thing down many times, but it somehow, some way made it through, and was always number 1 or 2 in market share in our respective areas. Did very, very well, very boutique. 200 agents. Wasn't a ton, but 200 agents out throughout 8 offices.
Wow.
Yeah, did very well.
That's pretty big for a mom and pop.
It was like the mom and pop. Yeah, it was kind of the staple mom and pop brand back in Cleveland and Akron areas, and it just obviously Berkshire came in and saw something, and it was obvious what they saw, and they bought it and took the name. It was such a good name, they actually switched their name throughout Ohio to Stouffer Realty, so it's Berkshire Hathaway Stouffer Realty. Yeah.
So looking forward to the rest of 2025 and into
Yeah.
2026, what's your goals?
This year, the goal is this: want to grow the company to 700 agents. We sit around 550, and I want that extra 150 agents that we gain. I want it to be productive agents. I want people new, experienced, whatever. I want production. I want people who want to come in and they want to work and they want to sell real estate, and that's their focus. And I want those people, and I think we can get them, right. And other goals would be to help the office with its reputation by getting some of those main players. Some of the big players. We have a good reputation, but I think I think our next big move will be taking some top agents in the area that really make that reputation known again, right? I think what happens when you've been in business a long time, like Keller has in the city, I think what happens is, people get used to the name being around. It just needs a jolt. It needs a new headline, and I want to get us those headlines. You guys back into those conversations that we have been in and should be in and are in. So,
What's the biggest thing you get? It's just not known, or is it? It's just nobody knows our story.
Nobody knows our story. It's not everybody knows it. That's not the
Yeah,
problem. It's do you know who McDonald's is? Yeah. You know who Nike is? Yeah. Okay. That's not the problem. Knowing the company is one thing. It's knowing what makes us different. Okay, you're huge. Yes, it's the largest real estate company on earth. You're everywhere. It's a great it's a great brand because it's international, and I'm sure it's awesome. Good for you. Okay, people know that. But why? Like, what's the DNA? What are the 2 or 3 things that make us us? Okay, you just need to tell those
What's
things.
the biggest surprise agents
Yeah.
when they hear about when you're saying the story? What's the biggest surprise that they have?
If they don't know about the capping model, that's probably the biggest surprise. The funny thing about that is sometimes they don't really believe it. They go, that just can't be.
Well, we were in that interview. What was it, Thursday?
Yeah,
And the
Thursday.
person was like, "How do you make money?"
How do you make money? Yeah, that's what everybody. Yeah, and
Hear it
I
all the
get it.
time.
That's against the traditional model.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't make money.
I do
No,
this
we
for
do.
fun.
Yeah, we do. That's probably the most surprising thing if they're not aware of that. The other thing,
I think they're most surprised when I turn around to them and say, we're probably the only ones profitable.
yeah. They might not know that their own brokerage isn't profitable. Like
I guess so, yeah.
That's I don't think. And when I was an agent, I paid attention to it because I had to. My family owned the place, but I don't think most agents understand that a lot of the companies they work for
Not
aren't really
profitable.
making money. If they're making money, they're barely making money. And that's so I think that's just kind of the run of the mill agents, because who cares?
Yeah, they don't. I wouldn't
Who
care
cares?
either.
I don't know. The doors open. Does the printer work?
Sure.
They pick up when I call. Okay, we're good to go.
Yeah.
They make a buck. They don't. They're around. I'm fine. I'll take advantage of what I need to take advantage of and go from there.
That's right.
No, I think the most surprising is the financial model. I think other than that, the referral network. I think that one I did not understand this till I got into it. The referral network is ridiculous. Because I was at Berkshire Hathaway, that's an international company. That's a huge company too. It's not as big as Keller, but it's not small. And the referrals were here and there, And maybe it's because it was Cleveland, but I have a feeling it wasn't just that. When you told me and all these other people in Keller that I was talking to, Michael and those types, were talking about the referral network. I thought, yeah, I've heard this before. I heard it 5 years ago. I know exactly. Yeah, okay. I'm sure it's great. I'm sure all your business. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm sure that's it's a pitch that you guys usually bring people on. I get it. And then I came in and I go, oh my god, this is
legit.
This is very legit. This is not just legit. It's like for some people in the company, 50% of their business is coming in from this, and for some of the brokerages, 30-35% of the GCI is coming in.
Huh?
It's insane, and maybe part of that's because we're in Manhattan, but it's not just me. You go to family reunion, you go to these conventions, you go to the conferences, and that's what people are there for, is to take advantage of it. And you start taking advantage of it like right away. We had a guy come in from Compass, Aaron, comes from Compass, and I'm sure it's great, man. And then all of a sudden he's sitting there and you got a $6 million referral from somebody in who knows where, and he's going to family reunion and doing those things. It's amazing, right? That's that. I think that's the one thing that you have to kind of be here to really start to understand. I think before you're there, you kind of start to think it's it's a pitch. It's a something to grab somebody, but in reality, it's real.
It is real.
It's real.
That's
Yeah,
crazy to say. Well, Matt,
yeah,
this was fun.
it's fun.
Sorry it ended so quick.
Sorry.
Learned a lot about Cleveland. When are we going to Cincinnati?
I think a month and a half.
Should be fun. And then
That'd be
Cleveland.
fun. Yeah, and then Cleveland. We'll do it. Be a good time. I appreciate you.
Same here.
Yeah.
Look forward to watching you grow. I'm really excited about 2025 and 2026. And again, keep up the hard work. I really appreciate you. Love you, brother.
Love you, man.